Thanks for tuning in to the Charles Novell School of Music podcast, The Best Day Yet. Here you'll find tips, insight, and information to help your music and your ministry succeed. Whether you're a singer, a musician, or a songwriter, we want to help you where you are, but we also want to help you get to where you want to go. We believe that our talents are God's gift to us, but what we do with those are our gift back to God. Yesterday's information is important, but what we can learn today will make this the best day yet. Hey everybody, Rob Novell here. Wanted to take just a second to tell you about our next upcoming CNS event. We will have a weekend regional session in Central Florida, February 9th and 10th. Come study vocal, instrumental, songwriting, and so much more. To register and for more information, visit us at www.cnsmusic.com. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the Charles Novell School of Music podcast, The Best Day Yet. Super excited to be here today. Man, I absolutely love bringing this information to everyone each week. And the reason is, I've recently shared this and been in this place. I believe this way. You can't be a teacher if you're not a student. And I love and it's just kind of the way God works in my life. As I prepare something, I get excited and I say, you know what? I can't wait to share that with a student. I can't wait to share that with CNS. I can't wait to share that on our Best Day Yet podcast. So many people need this information. And then God will say, you know what, Rob? Why don't you take that in the fitting room and try that on for yourself and see how that fits on you. So I love as we study and as we prepare for certain things that God will use those moments to speak in to our lives. I know, we have the whole Rhema and Logos word, and there's just different times. I love how God chooses to speak to me. I may be in my Bible and doing some personal study devotion time, and man, a scripture I've read 1,000 times will just speak to me a little different in that moment. And I love how God chooses. It's not in the mighty rushing wind. It's not in the fire. Sometimes it's just that still small voice. So he's God. I love letting him be God and doing his thing and speaking to me when and how he chooses to fit, because he knows at the end of the day, that is what is best for Rob. So I just encourage you and again, I want to encourage you by thanking you for tuning in each week, listening to this information, and seeing how you can apply it to your life, to your music, and to your ministry. I'm super excited about our topic today. I don't grow up in the house I've grown up in and in the circle of life that God chose and saw fit to place me in, and this word not resonate within me. Motivation, man, I was cut from the cloth with my dad. My dad was one of the most motivated individuals I've ever seen. He would find ways, sometimes fun ways, sometimes not so fun ways to motivate me. There's a great story that a couple of my friends love to bring up every time we're around each other about a particular day that they came to pick me up at the house for us to go out and do something. And I had failed to get the grass cut that particular day. And that was on my list of duties for a couple days to get done. And let's just leave it this way, because I love and respect my dad, and I want you all to understand that. He highly motivated me that particular day to get the grass cut. So let's just say there are ways that he chose to work within the definition of this word motivation. But man, it's easy. I am, kind of cut from the cloth. Legally, I am Charles Robert Novell II. I go by my middle name, Rob, or our middle name, Rob. My dad was Charles Robert Novell. They named me Charles Robert II. So I go by Rob. When my son was born, we named him Charles Robert Novell III. And a cool little side note to that, my grandfather, my dad's dad, was John R. Novell. The R stood for Robert. So it was John Robert, Charles Robert II, and Charles Robert III. So when my son Trey was born, Robert Novell, that name became 100 years old. My grandfather and my son were born 100 years apart. So a lot in a name, yes, there is. And for me, growing up again in this house, it's been easy for me to kind of follow, we're products of our environment. We have things exampled and modeled in front of us, and we end up repeating that and doing the same thing. So I have found myself really being a motivated person. It's not necessarily a chore for me to get motivated to do something. However, and we're going to talk about this today, we're not always, even the Novell household, we're not always in a mindset of wanting to get something done and being motivated to get moving. And, sometimes we can get there. We get to those spots where, we simply don't feel like doing it, whatever it might be. It could be we don't feel like doing anything at all because there's zero interest there. Nothing really is creating any interest to get us motivated to do the task at hand. Sometimes, we can all find ourselves there. And again, as by nature, as highly motivated as I am, there are times that I have to motivate my motivation. So we're going to talk 7 things today that they're different things that I do throughout my daily, weekly routine and things that I have to do from time to time to help get me motivated to take care of the task at hand. So again, we can all find ourselves in this position, and sometimes we're tired or just exhausted, burnout. That is a legitimate phrase that we can all face in what we do. And I'm, we're starting out vague today. However, the Charles Novell School of Music is a school of music. So we are talking specifically within our music and our ministry, ways that we can motivate ourselves to get there. This very podcast for me, we can get tired, we exhausted, burnout. We all get there. We all get there. This particular podcast, there are certain weeks, more so than others, that I have to get motivated to get into the studio and get this thing done and get it uploaded so it's ready to go on Tuesday mornings at 5 a.m. The CNS podcast, The Best Day Yet, releases, the new episode releases every Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. And I made a promise to you, to me, but more importantly, to my dad, but ultimately, most importantly, to God, to release a new episode of the CNS podcast every Tuesday morning. So a weekly podcast with my schedule, and as much as I tend to find myself having on my plate, a weekly podcast, that's a big deadline for me to reach every week. And just being completely transparent, there are some weeks that it's easier than others. But part of the motivation for me, and this isn't even on our list today, but technically, yes, we could insert this, and if I can remember, I may connect those dots when we get to that point. But for me, the reason this podcast goes out every Tuesday is I want to fulfill that commitment, that promise that I made. When we started the CNS podcast, The Best Day Yet, I uploaded the first episode on August 31st of 2022. And the reason I can specifically remember that is this. I woke up on the morning of August 31st, 2022, and I got to thinking about my dad because that would have been his 80th birthday. And I wanted to do something special that day to honor my dad. So I began talking to God about, hey, what could we do today that I could truly honor Dad? And God said, hey, what about you revisit that podcast idea that we talked about quite some time ago? That thing that I had tabled. I had thought about it, looked into it a little bit, seemed a little overwhelming, so I kind of tabled it. And on that morning of August 31st, God challenged me to revisit that. So literally within the course of that one day, I conceded to the fact that, okay, let's do this podcast thing. I had to figure out how to do a podcast, which encompassed a lot of different things. I had to figure out who would host a podcast, who I would send money to each month to pay for our hosting service. Once I figured that out, and there were multiple companies and kind of had to do the A/B comparison. Once I picked a company, then I started looking at the requirements, what was necessary to record a podcast. Now, that was the easy part. We have Counterpoint Recording. I come to you each week via the CNS Best Day Yet podcast as I record it at Counterpoint Recording Production. So the equipment, the room, the setting, all that environment was already in place. But I then had to come up with the intro and the outro that I tag on to each one of these weekly episodes. I had to come up with that. I totally built the music here at Counterpoint and did the voice overlay and did all that and got all that ready. I had to come up with a graphic. The graphic that you maybe can see if you look down at your device you're listening to this on today. The graphic, I had to create that. I do graphics again with Counterpoint Recording. I do most of the artist layouts for their CD projects, do all the graphics for CNS. So had all that in place, but I still had to come up with the design. The microphone on the logo, never talked about this, but the logo with the microphone inside of the CNS Best Day Yet podcast. My dad and I, and as I'm sharing this, I'm looking around my control room here and I'm looking at a few of them. My dad and I, for probably 10, 15 years, we had this little friendly competition of trying to outdo the other as we located vintage microphones, and we started a vintage microphone collection. I probably have over 100 vintage microphones now, a thrift shop, a flea market, different places that we would be that we could find one. We would purchase them, bring them home, and, different levels of treasures that you can find when you begin some type of journey like this in collectibles. So I knew that the microphone was a symbolic symbol, even if until today. We've done a year and a half of these podcasts and I've never shared this, but today everybody now knows the reason the microphone is there was to honor my dad. So I had to come up with the logo, had to figure out how to record content, all of this stuff, and then how to get the episode uploaded. So it was an all day event. And at 11:45-ish on the evening of August 31st, 2022, the first episode of CNS Podcast went live to release the next morning. So I accomplished it. It was happy birthday, Dad. I made this thing happen. So all that to tell you, to show you what motivates me to continue to release these weekly. One other thing. We released them at the beginning of September. That was August 31st. I think it literally went live on September the 1st of 2022. I got it up technically before my dad's birthday expired, but it released the next morning. And that was a couple weeks prior to NQC 22. And we got to the convention and man, just somebody, a good friend, someone that I just have the utmost respect for in gospel music, Singing News Radio, Joseph Reed. Joseph Reed and I were talking at the CNS booth there at NQC. And he said, Rob, let me give you a bit of advice and encourage you. He said, what is your schedule? When are you releasing? I said, we're going to be a weekly podcast. He said, don't miss a week. Don't miss a week. If you miss a week, then you'll miss 2 and you'll miss 3. And you will not, eventually, your podcast will fall by the wayside. He said, this is a great thing. I think, he said, I believe in CNS. He's on our staff at CNS, a big part of what we do. And he said, I believe in CNS and I believe this can be a good thing, but make sure you release one every week. I'm like, okay, perfect. So we did, and that's another motivation each week for me to make sure that we have new episodes released. And it's just, a small little thing, the promise to my dad and then the encouragement from a friend. Those are motivating factors for me to release this podcast each week. So I've got a list of 7 things I want to talk about today. Let's get into that now. All right. So you're not motivated. You're lacking motivation. You need help in this department. Number 1, find what motivated you the last time. It could be a song. It could be music that you listen to. It could be a place that you go. My studio, coming down into the basement of my home. My studio is in the basement, and coming down the steps, I have a sign that says, "This is my happy place." For years, I had shared with our songwriting students, find a happy place. Find your happy place to write a song. So my studio for me is definitely my happy place. It's labeled on the steps coming down here. But that shifted a couple years ago. Honestly, your happy place can be any place that makes you happy. And it shouldn't be, I've said this over and over. I believe when we're called to do something, we shouldn't endure it. We should enjoy it. So I believe wherever we can work and do what God has called us to do could be our happy place. So music, a place, setting, food, an idea, a timing. Think back to what was it that motivated you to do this the last time. So let's talk about what is this. Let's use a couple examples. I am working currently on a couple new piano arrangements, and got really frustrated. I'm learning an arrangement of my dad's and got really mad at my dad the other night because, y'all, he was an absolute beast on the piano. His right hand, holy cow. So this particular song I'm learning is fast, it's upbeat, it's up tempo. And I hear the notes. I cannot figure out what my dad is doing in this exact spot. So I got a little frustrated, and I had to take a little break. But what encourages me to do that is the inspiration behind why do I want to do that. I'm learning this song because I want to play it, yes, but I want to do it to honor my dad. So, put yourself in a mindset. If you're a songwriter and you're trying to write, man, look back to one of those moments that you really wrote something you were happy with, something you were proud of, and maybe try to recreate that setting, that place, that mood, that time, that idea. Number 2, get yourself ready for the day. Now, what do you mean? So let me tell you, what I mean. Our house is a safe place. Our homes they're that happy place we just talked about. But our homes can come with a big disadvantage. Here's the disadvantage. If you are home for the day, you're working from home. Half my days are spent working from home. With the recording studio and what I do with my office with CNS, I do a lot of work from home. So what does that mean? When you are working from home and you're not seeing anybody, that means right now, y'all, I'm wearing pajama pants, a t-shirt, and there's a hat on my head. I look like a hot mess right now. Why? Because you all can't see me. This is an audio podcast, not a video podcast. In the grand scheme of things, it does not matter my appearance at this exact moment. However, man, getting yourself ready as you do to leave the house. If I'm heading to a recording session at a different studio than mine, or I'm heading to a business meeting or a Zoom meeting, if different levels of Zoom, if it's a comfortable screen of people, maybe you don't get yourself ready. But if there are different people there, there's going to be people you're meeting for the first time, you may put a little bit more effort into getting ready. Now, getting ready for the day can just totally change your mindset, and it can totally motivate you to be a little bit more inspired, a little bit more creative. So maybe if you feel yourself stuck in this rut of lack of motivation and you're working from home, get up, get yourself presentable, look in the mirror. You're going to look better than before you were presentable. So if anybody can enjoy it, it can start with you. You can look in the mirror and feel good about yourself. I do believe that will change the outlook and the outcome of your day. Number 3, I like to call this positive, purposeful pressure. Positive, purposeful pressure. You're like, what in the world is that? So here's the thing. Sometimes we can look at the deadlines that are approaching, and that can finally motivate us, especially if you are one of those, let's add another P to the positive, purposeful pressure. A procrastinator. If you procrastinate, I am guilty of that. I can put things off. Most of the time for me, it's from a schedule conflict. It's not that I don't want to do it, because a lot of times it is eating me up because it's on my mind. It's stuck there in the front of my brain. I know I need to do it, but unfortunately, sometimes that can at the, when the wash comes out, that can be defined as procrastination. So that deadline's coming. Think about maybe the repercussions that may fall upon you if you do not reach that deadline. The other thing to look at in this positive, purposeful pressure, man, turn the negative voice into motivation within itself to encourage you to move forward. There was a particular season in my life, I was coming out of one thing and going into another, and I had someone just point blank ask me a question: what are you going to go do? Are you going to go do this? And they kind of spoke to my next season. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And the parting words out of this individual's mouth, that'll never work. That's going to fall flat on its face. And as hurtful and obnoxious as that was at that moment, man, that fueled me to prove that person wrong. So positive, purposeful pressure, you can get motivated by silencing that voice, silencing that negativity. Think about maybe, again, in this area, think about how you'll feel if you do not get motivated to get something done. At the end of the day, we only have ourselves to blame. We've talked about this. That whole victim mentality. There are people that feel entitled to things because they believe they are constantly under attack. Things haven't happened for them. Doors haven't opened when they want them to open. And they blame everybody and every situation but themselves for the place they find them in. So you know what? If you're lacking motivation today, you may need to back up and look into that mirror again. More than likely, it's you. We only have ourselves to blame at the end of the day. Number 4, people, provision, and potential. Not to be confused with positive, purposeful pressure, but absolutely number 4 here, people, provision, and potential. This is the opposite of number 3. and silencing that negative voice. People, provision, and potential. So what does that mean? Who is counting on you? Who needs you to move forward into this more than you want to move forward into this? For me, it's simple. Man, it's my family. On some of those days, I'm not motivated enough to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. I think, why do I need to do this? Well, I need to do this, you know what? To support my family. I made a commitment when I married Jennifer Dyer, and then when we brought 2 kids into this world. My biggest motivation on a daily basis is to provide for my family. So people and provision right there, that brings out Rob's potential. So who needs you to move forward more than you want to move forward? If we fail to deliver, we fail to deliver. It's real simple. And we can look at this in a small circle and a big circle. My small circle, I've already told you, it's my family. I get motivated to do what needs to get done because I need to provide for my family. That's small circle. Big circle, you know what? I've answered a call on my life. I was told I only run this school because my dad passed on and I'm a Novell, and it was what I had to do. No, that's not true. I do this because it's a call on my life. What is that call? Man, my call is to help you and everyone that can come into contact with CNS develop and further their giftings for the glory of the Lord. Period. That's our mission statement at CNS. If you've ever wondered, we are here to help people be the best that they can be unto God. It's very, very simple. But that falls under a big circle within this people provision potential. If I don't do what needs to be done in February of 2024, now that we're here, golly, I haven't connected that yet. But if I don't do what needs to be done in February of 2024, if I don't get motivated to accomplish the tasks that need to happen for CNS, then CNS 24 in July is affected. So big circle are students that will be attending CNS 24. Big circle are, you heard at the beginning of today's podcast, we have a regional weekend this coming weekend in Central Florida, February 9th and 10th. We will be down there. We have a group of students. Our regionals are smaller sessions than our summer session, but yet it's still part of the call in our life. So if I don't do things and get motivated to get things ready for our weekend regional this weekend, then that big circle is going to be affected. Number 5, listen to something motivational. If you need help in the motivation department, you know what? I drive a Nissan. If it breaks down, I don't take it to Ford for them to fix my Nissan. I take my Nissan to the Nissan dealer. So if you need help in the area of motivation, listen to something motivational. A speaker, a preacher, these podcasts, the CNS podcast should be motivating you. That's why we do these. We can only go so far, and then we need to refill our tank. Part of the reason you're feeling tired, exhausted, maybe burnt out, is the gauge is kind of pegging over, leaning towards the E side. And there's times we simply just need to get a refill. Rely on someone's best while you're at your worst. What does that mean? You know, if you tune into this podcast today and maybe you're lacking in the area of motivation, guess what? Today, for this specific episode, I'm a little more motivated than you are because I put this information together to bring to you today, to encourage you, to motivate you. So maybe if you're down, if that needle is pointing a little more on the E side of the tank, you know, and it's not your best, if you are struggling a little bit, rely on someone's best while you're at your worst. I think back, and I do this often, different things that have happened as we've raised our kids have kind of become staples and part of our lives. My daughter grew up in the era where she was highly influenced and went through the whole High School Musical phase. And they had that one song in there. They had multiple songs, obviously, but the one song, I can't get the hook out of my head because it applies to this moment right here. Y'all, we are all in this together. We're here to help each other. We're here maybe to hold up the arms of each other when we need our arms held up. So rely on other people. Listen to something motivational to get you motivated. Number 6, a carrot at the end of a stick. What do I mean by that? We that phrase means you dangle something out in front of you that you're going to chase after. Timeline treats. Reward yourself for, you know what? If I can accomplish this today, I'm going to take the family out to our favorite restaurant. You know, or put that little carrot at the end, dangle something out in front of you to chase after. Reward yourself. It's kind of that light at the end of the tunnel. If you know something good is waiting for you, if you pull this off and you accomplish what needs to be accomplished, man, kudos if that's what it takes to motivate you. So we've talked 6 different things here. The last thing I want to talk about, we're going to call it the Forrest Gump getaway. Again, Forrest Gump. Well, what do we associate with that? By default, when I hear Forrest Gump, I think run, Forrest, run, right? You know what? Maybe when you've tried this whole list, 1 through 6, that we talked about here, reward yourself this way. Run. When nothing works, run away from it. Maybe take some time off. Again, we mentioned this earlier, I think towards the beginning. We should not endure what we do. We should enjoy what we do. Now, I have 40 some students on the course of a week. I have some younger students that mom and dad, I think, want them to play the piano more than they currently want to play the piano. So they're maybe not 100% enjoying it. They may be enduring that 30 minutes. But part of my responsibility as their teacher, if you're listening to this and you teach music, man, don't lose sight of the biggest job that you have. Teach them music? Absolutely. Your biggest job is to motivate them. Your biggest job is to encourage them. So on some of those days that I can tell that student is sitting there enduring, if you know me, you know me. If you know, you know. I had a little girl a couple months ago. She my teaching studio at the One Church Academy that I teach at on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. There's a hallway. There are 4 teaching studios there, and there's some benches, some padded benches that they can wait on in the hallway. So I usually finish with the student, open the door, I say goodbye to them, and my next student is in the hallway waiting. And I'll greet them and bring them on into the room. And I always ask a couple questions every week, every day that I see a student. How was your week? And then I ask them, any fun, exciting things happen this week? I want to be, the biggest influences on my life as teachers growing up were those that showed an interest in Rob. So I want my students to understand I'm glad they're there to learn music, but I also want them to know that I care about them and their weeks and what they're going through. That has led, that simple question has led to, you know what, before we start our lesson, we're going to pray about that specific situation. A pet passed away. I found that out one day, and I just felt led because they teared up when they told me, and I just, felt led that we could pray about that and take those needs to the one who truly understood the best. So that question allows me to connect with my students. But this particular day, this little girl came in and she looked at me and she said, "Mr. Rob, no jokes today." So again, if you know me, you know me. And I'm like, "Why not? Are you having a bad day?" And she's like, "No, I'm actually having a really good day. That's why I don't want to hear any of your jokes." I was crushed by this little young girl. But my point in that is just we shouldn't, again, endure. We should enjoy. So icebreakers, little different things that we can do to continue to just stay motivated. But man, when you've tried the whole list and none of it's working, take a break. Get away from it. I mentioned learning that arrangement of my dad's. I did, y'all. I had to just stop. I went upstairs and Jen saw me. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." She's like, "What's wrong?" I said, "Man, I am mad at my dad." And the most puzzled look, she looked at me and said, "What?" And then I explained why, I'm trying to learn this song and I can't because my dad was in pure beast mode the day that he recorded this particular song. Listen, 7 ways to get motivated. We went through all 7 of those today. Man, I just want to encourage you to apply this information. Let it encourage you. Let it motivate you. God has called you to do something and it needs to get done. It's that simple. Maybe one of these work better for you. Maybe it takes a couple of these. Maybe it gets you all the way to number 7 where, none of it worked. And you may just need to take a little time out, get away from it, come back and refocus. That may be the motivation that you need. Man, I think if you apply these things today to your life, to your music, to your ministry, you will truly find out that it's going to make it your best day yet. Y'all be blessed. We'll talk next time. Thanks for listening to the Charles Novell School of Music podcast, The Best Day Yet. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under the name the Charles Novell School of Music. And for more information on CNS and our upcoming events, like our online school, our weekend regional sessions, our creative coaching, and our pastor's retreat, you can visit us at our website at www.cnsmusic.com. As you've listened to this episode, we hope that you've gained some information that you can apply to your music and to your ministry to make today the best day yet.